Hello and welcome back to the Go for Two podcast. I'm Liam, your host, and today we're joined by a very special guest, the man who puts more effort into a draft guide than Dane Brugler is, of course, Jack Brentnall from the Touchdown. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to talking through this class because I think it's an interesting one.
It is, yeah. We ran out of time this year, so we didn't get you and Leon for 2-hour offensive and defensive episodes. So we're gonna have to try and cram all your knowledge into one episode. But how did the guide process go this year? I know you kind of pour your heart and soul into that thing.
Yeah, it's getting longer every year. It was good. I'm really pleased to have it done. It's over 700 pages this year. Got 230 profiles in there. Got a big board in there. So really pleased with it. There's always going to be players that you think at the end, you're like, oh, can I squeeze a few extra in? But it's like, no. At some point, it needs to be done.
How many
Yeah,
players
really
was
pleased.
it? It's 700 pages, but
Yeah, 230 players, and there's like
nice.
generally 3 pages per player. So most of the guys who'll get drafted should be in there. There'll always be, well, obviously there'll be some that won't be, but certainly
Yeah.
all the top ones. So it's yeah, it's a good class. And there's loads of interesting guys. So it was a good one to put together really this year because I think more than most of the years, finding some of those guys, there's still some gems and some surprises later on. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
Was it getting up to 250 that you attempted to? That magic number?
That's what I wanted to hit. That's what next year's going to be. I've already started on 2027, so it's like, right, okay, like I'm going to get there now. I'll give myself the extra time.
Is it Jordan Reed, I think, from ESPN, or rattle out 500, and I was like, Jesus, that's a different. I know he's got a lot more help than you're going to have, but I was like, that's a hell of an effort, 500 players.
Yeah. When you start getting over that number, it's like, but also like when you're trying to watch those guys who are going to be UDFAs, the tape gets boring quite quickly.
Yeah, I'm finding the tape maybe easier for, obviously, ESPN guys. Over here, yeah, finding some tape. When I was trying to watch some 6-7 round receivers for more for my team, I was struggling to find tape. I was having to message people that I know in America that normally have tape, and it was a nightmare. But cool. Well, anyone should go get it. Can they get it? What is it on the website, Touchdown, or on your Twitter?
Yeah, so you can either go on touchdown.co.uk or on my Twitter page. If you go there, there's a pinned tweet with it on. So Jack_Brentnall, and you can find it there.
And Jack's the man for evaluations, everyone. So as you're going to hear in the next hour, and then you can go buy his draft guides. This is 10 questions of the draft, so I tried to think about different ways we could tackle it. Hopefully we'll rattle through some different prospects in each one to cover as many guys as we can. We did do a top 16 mock last episode, so listeners would have heard our views on not the top 16, but 16 of the top probably 25 players. But first question is, how do you grade the class overall, obviously compared to previous years, and I guess where does the depth fall off and where is the real depth? You know, I was listening to a couple of press conferences today by GMs and they were talking very similarly about position groups. So how do you see this class overall?
It's an interesting one. I think there's definitely been a narrative that it's a weaker group. I don't know if I necessarily buy into that. I think that the reason we always kind of go by weak or strong classes are there blue chip guys at premium positions, QB, edge, wide receiver. There are blue chip guys in this year's class. I've got 4 guys with like blue chip grades. None of them play what you would typically call premium positions. So I think that makes it sound a little weaker than it maybe is. I think the other thing that I think makes this class maybe more interesting is that when you then get outside those guys and you look at those premium positions, there are some really good players, but they all have maybe more of a question mark around them than a lot of them do in most classes. So you look at the edges, you've got Ruben Bain, the arm length is obviously the big thing. There's obviously recently been the off-field stuff as well, but the arm length is the kind of thing that's been going on throughout the draft cycle. David Bailey, there's been questions about kind of, you know, when he assaulted the cameraman or whatever, and all these other things. Then you've got the tackles who all seem to have tiny arms. I mean, it's a class full of people with tiny arms. Jamal McCoy, injury concerns. Jordan
Corners with
Tyson.
tiny arms.
There's nobody that you're looking at. I mean, like even a guy like Carnell Tate, you're like, you know, depending on how you view receivers, some will go, okay, well, not the most high end athlete, right? So there's not really all those guys outside of that blue chip tier. I mean, even Fernando Mendoza, you could argue. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mendoza, but he's not in that tier of quarterbacks of like that we would normally have going number one, like in your Burrows, your Lawrences, your Caleb Williams, your Drake Mays. I think he's a very good player, but even then you kind of go in. So I think it's an interesting class. I think the depth is interesting though, even where there are positions where there's maybe not those blue chips, cornerback, wide receiver, to a degree offensive tackle. I think there's quite a lot of interesting depth to those groups, which I think makes it an interesting class when you're talking about that kind of top 50.
Yeah, I think for me, I agree. I think it's maybe the top 10 is weaker. Obviously, we had that draft 2 years ago, didn't we? Where Parsons went 12 or 14, whatever it was. That's a different level. The top 10, I think, are normally stronger than this top 10, in my opinion. But I'm not sure there's a huge difference from like 20 to 45. Whereas like in previous years, especially as like if my team's picking later, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a player at 32, 31 that I probably wouldn't like that much. Whereas now it's like, okay, I could get a player anywhere between 20-ish, maybe a bit lower than that, 45, 50. And I think grade-wise, they'll be very close. Or on my board, they're very close. I think that's what makes it more fun.
Yes, and I as a Packers fan, we don't pick till 52, but the guys that are being talked about as potentially being on the board, they're guys I'd potentially be happy with if we had a late first. Whereas, like you say, the top 10, like I just think if you get to number 2 and number 3 in a mock draft, they're the hardest. It's the hardest I've ever had to work to decide what to do at 2 and 3 because I can't make a pick I feel great about. That's the problem. Like there's things I like about every pick, but I'm like, I also don't feel good about it.
Yeah, 4's not good either for me this year. But yeah, normally I'm pretty confident 1, 2, 3, 4-ish. And then there's normally that one difference in the top 4, 5. But then the rest of the top 10, you're quite confident you'll get 8 of the 10. But this year, it is the same names, I guess. But I'm not very confident when I put my huddle mock in that they're going to be in the right pick, if you know what I mean. They're going to be all over the place.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on to some position groups then. So yeah, edge and linebacker for me are two kind of deep classes. Linebacker's probably the deepest, arguably. But edge is really good as well. There's a lot of edges I like in round 2 that I think previously teams would have picked at 20, 25. But do those positions being so, I guess, important in the top 10 changes how teams should approach the draft? Because normally it's offensive tackles, it's wide receivers, it's quarterbacks that people trade up for. Do you think this year having so many edges and linebackers probably going to go in the top 10 to 12? Do you think that changes how those teams should approach the draft?
I think for me at both spots there are two kind of clear-cut top players. So I think if you can get those guys, whether if you're picking in the top 10 or you're thinking about trading up, then I think there's still logic and merit in doing that. I think if those two guys are off the board at each position, which for me is Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese and Ruben Bain and David Bailey, linebacker and edge respectively, if they're all off, then I'm like, I'm just going to sit and wait because I think there are guys. Then when you start, especially edge for me, I mean, once you get past those two, it really is a bit of a kind of what flavor do you like? And the guys that you're talking about, you can probably get quite a bit later. I mean, I'm looking and I've not got much of a gap between my grades on like edge 3 to 7. Is that 7? Might even be 8. 8, edge 8. Yeah. Like there's not a massive gap. I mean, there is a there are a lot kind of in the same tier, which I think there's not many classes where you're normally saying that. It's normally there's maybe 3 guys, 4 guys in that top tier, and then you drop. So I think that means you're more likely to get those values kind of later on in the first round.
I do think it might change the value of trades that we see as well in the top 10 because it's not quarterback and it's not offensive tackle. And I think if it's defensive end, even though it's still defensive end, I think NFL teams are smart. So if you're trading up for Ruben Bain, let's just say, I think you would spend less than what you would have spent on, obviously, Will Anderson, but insert good edge in the top 10s. I think that'll probably make a difference.
Yeah.
I know you've probably got different players for all the questions I'm going to ask you, so I hope I'm not spoiling it. But Arvell Reese, you're 100% sure he's going to play edge? You don't think he's a linebacker?
I think he will play edge. I think he should play linebacker. I prefer him off ball. I think you can do, with the way the NFL is working now, you can do enough of that with him without having to move him there full time. I think where he works best is as that kind of situational pass rusher who, yes, you can bring him down onto the edge, but you can get creative with blitzers, work him as a kind of QB spy. He did quite a lot of that at Ohio State and looked really good. I think moving him to edge full time, obviously edge is a more premium position. I'm not sure he's a guy yet that is refined enough there. I think that's the thing that would give me pause with a guy like Reese at 2 is there's still quite you really put in a lot of faith in your coaching staff to move into edge, but it sounds like that's where he wants to play and that's probably where NFL teams will play him. So I'd love to see him in a team that would kind of be a bit more creative, but I get the feeling he's going to be kind of in that same pathway as like a Micah Parsons and Abdul Carter, but I don't see him. Obviously, Carter played edge in his final season of college. Parsons, I think, was a different kind of player. So, yeah, I think he'll be good at both spots, but I'd prefer him at linebacker.
Yeah, I think Parsons was that different level of athlete, even though he's a great athlete. He's that different level. Yeah, that's very similar to me, actually. I'm going to draft him as an edge in terms of when I mock, because that's clearly what every team thinks. But on my board, he is he is a linebacker. I actually see him and Styles the same in terms of, I think they'll both be situational pass rushers. They can both maybe come up in like double mug looks. They can do what Zach Bourne does, or they're obviously a lot better than Leo Chanel. But Leo Chanel, where on third down, he'll just play as like a defensive end for 5-10 snaps a game. I think they can both do that. It's just, for some reason, I think maybe because of his speed, people think Arvell Reese is more likely to be a pure edge, but I'm not sure that's where I see him. But I think Titans would be the best place for him to do what you're saying. But
yeah, that'd be good fun.
Feels like a Jet. It does feel a bit like a
I
Jet.
think it will be. I know there's been all the smoke about David Bailey, but I think the Jets are doing that thing of like trying to give a bit of confusion to try and maybe potentially get teams to trade up. I think he's going to go number 2. I don't see it being Bailey. I think it's Reese. I think they're just trying to. This happens every year, doesn't it? Where there's like picks that are nailed on, and then either the team themselves or people in the media try and sell us that, oh, actually, maybe it'll be somebody different, and then it'll happen on draft night. And we're like, yeah, we actually knew this all 5 months ago.
Yeah, he feels like he's going to be that. I think he's plus odds to go if someone likes to bet. His favourite's David Bailey, but I think that'll change within the next few when we get those final insider mocks where DJ suddenly changes it back because he's heard who they're picking or whatever. Cool. So the next question then, based around those two players as well, really. So linebacker, kind of sexy position in the NFL, non-premium position. But there's others. So Caleb Downs is going to be in most people's top 5 to 10. I don't know if he'll go top 10, but most people's 5 to 10. Jeremiah Love will probably go top 10. He's in most people's top 5. So you've got 2 linebackers or 1 linebacker. You've got safety. You've got running backs. You've got tackles that might have to play guard. Do we think that breaks the rule this year? They're all going to go really high, or do you think when we get to draft, some of these guys are going to fall and it's going to be like, no, positional value still matters?
I think it's going to be one where these guys go earlier than they would normally. I think it sounds like Jeremiah Love's not going to make it. I mean, by the sounds of it, he's not going to make it past 4. And I don't think he'll make it past maybe the Commanders at 7. And I think similar kind of thing for those linebackers. I think the challenge you've got is like positional value is really important, and I do think it matters. I think the challenge comes when you're evaluating guys who are in different tiers as prospects. And it's one thing to say, okay, I've got a guy who's a tier 2 edge versus a tier 2 linebacker. Well, take the edge, right? Because it's more valuable. Similar to if you're going, I've got a tier 2 linebacker and a tier 3 edge, then it gets more difficult. And I think that's part of the challenge. It's like, do I take a guy who maybe won't ever be one of the best players at his position, but plays a more premium position? Or do I just go, you know what, the draft's about getting good players, and I'm going to take those guys early? I think the challenge as well is there's Bain and Bailey. Outside of that, I'm not sure there's any guys at those premium spots that are really going to threaten Styles and Downs and those guys from going early, because I think those other ones, the tackles, almost all of them, there's the question of, well, are they actually a tackle?
Yeah. Or are they a left tackle as well?
Yeah, exactly. Which I think then muddies it even further. So there's not really many clear tackles, and those that are, or those that are being talked up as the kind of clear tackles, I'm not sure are in that tier either.
Yeah, I think for me it's wide receivers are the ones that could sneak in there, because I feel like they do every year. We start to hear Tate at 4, Tate at 5 more and more. I think Lemon consistently is now getting mocked 7, 8, 9 potentially, whereas I think a month ago he was 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Tyson's obviously a bit of an enigma. I might end up talking about him later, but I think it's just wide receiver. Apart from that, I really don't think that. I know people keep talking about tackles. Brett Veach said today that he doesn't think many tackles basically will go by 10, but then he says between 10 and 25, good luck, because they're all going to be gone by the time you get to the end.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see it. But I think wide receivers are the ones that could maybe go earlier than they probably should. But I just think that seems to be the rumor mill. But it's just, again, do we get surprised and Caleb Down goes 6 and it's like, okay, no, we were wrong all along. But yeah, that's my position.
I think wide receivers get pushed up the board it feels like every year, don't they? Like the one that the draft that always sticks in my mind is the one, was it 2022, where we had Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams.
Yeah, and they traded up for Jameson Williams, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Olave went early. And I'm not saying these guys, haven't lived up to anything, but like I don't think they would have necessarily been at that level on most people's big boards. But it's like when the draft night came, it was like we're all just going to scrabble and try and get these guys as early as we can. I think that's a position that teams really sell themselves on and get quite excited about, and fans do as well. So I do think they tend to go a bit earlier than maybe they would if you were just looking at a pure big board.
Yeah, agreed. For the next question, I didn't let you pick Love or Downs. So before we move on, how good are they as prospects? Let's compare them. Everyone who listens is going to know who Carl Hamilton is. They're all going to know who Bijan Robinson is. They're two of the best prospects to come out in those positions. Are they in that tier, or are they one tier below, two tiers below?
They're in the, so in terms of my grading scale, they're in the same tier.
Okay.
But they're kind of, if you've got it as tier 1A and tier 1B, they're more tier 1B than those guys. I think Bijan is the best running back I've kind of watched since I started doing this properly. Kind of 2020 was my first class. I think he's probably closer to Hamilton than Love is to Bijan, but I think Hamilton was just rare in terms of the size, the all-around ability. I think he was just a guy that could really change a defense. Whereas I think Downs, is a phenomenal player. I think Downs is the smartest safety I've ever scouted. I think is what I'd be comfortable saying. But I don't think he's an elite athlete, and his size is fine, but it's nothing special. So I think he's very safe as a prospect. I think he'll be very good. I don't know if he's in that kind of, oh my God, this is a game changing safety. I really want to build my whole team around type of guy.
Yeah, I'm similar. I'm a bit worried that if you're a team that does play a lot of one high, I'm not sure he's athletic enough to play, and he'll end up, for those teams, being like a nickel, I think. Which is why I'm a bit worried. Like, do you want to take a nickel at like 7 or 8? Maybe you do, but that's the part I'm a bit more unsure of. What about Jeremiah Love then as a prospect? Obviously, good pass blocker, home run hitter, good in the passing game. Like, how high do you rate him?
Yeah, he's very, very close to those kind of top guys. Like I say, just behind Bijan, but I'd probably have him probably ahead of Genti from last year. I think the question coming into the year was can he develop as a pass protector, because he wasn't really used in that way when in 2024. But then he showed enough. I mean, the thing for that with me is always, you don't need to be the world's best pass protector. You just need to be able to be serviceable, because that's what gets you on the field on passing down. So I think he is a true kind of 3-down back who can do a bit of everything. The size is good. The speed is great. When you look at the weaknesses for his game, you're really having to try and find them.
Yeah.
They're not things that you're immediate. And when you start actually looking at what the weaknesses are, there's nothing that's really going to make you go, "Oh, that's a problem. That's a flag. That's a real concern." He's just a very well-rounded player.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not quite on the DJ hype of he's the best slot wide receiver in this draft, which I think he said the other day as well. I don't think he's quite that good
No.
As a pass catcher, but I get his point. He's probably the second best pass catching running back I've ever scouted, because Bijan's just a different level to me. But yeah, I'd be excited. Have you got a favorite team you think he could go to? I don't think he'll last here, but the Cowboys would be my favorite for him to get.
Yeah, you want him behind, like, you don't want another Genty situation where it's just like he's just behind an offensive line that's just a mess. Somewhere like Dallas would be fun. I do like the idea of him in Washington. I think that could be entertaining.
Yeah, that's the best fit in the early options, because the rest are all just, they need more than a running back.
Yeah, and like the Saints made sense until they got Travis Etienne. So I think those are probably the ones I'd go with. I think I've seen a lot of Cardinal stuff, and that feels a bit strange. I think it's
because no one knows who the hell they're going to pick, to be honest.
No, I think it's like, we'll mock everybody to them, because then we can say we were right.
Yeah, I think the Bengals as well is a fantasy football one, because their offensive line is actually okay now. People think it's not, but it is actually good. But if they don't go defense, I think fans will probably riot.
They'll go mad. They will go mad.
Okay, cool. So you couldn't pick Downs and Love for this one, but I want to talk about, I guess, who you think are the safest pick or picks in the draft. So players that you think are going to have the least amount of chance, I guess, to fail as a prospect in the NFL.
Sonny Styles for me. He's my guy in this class. I think he's my highest graded player if you just take out positional value. Yeah, he is my highest graded player in the class. I just think he's what you're looking for in a modern linebacker. He is obviously a converted safety. I'm always wary when you get those guys, because converted safety to linebacker generally means they move really well, they're really good in coverage, but like as soon as you ask them to come down a hill and take on blocks, like they're just getting obliterated. But I think his block recognition is excellent. His take on skills are far better than they maybe should be for a guy who played safety until so recently. He's a good tackler. He's a strong tackler as well. He's not just kind of a reliable one. He's got good stopping power on contact. I think his processing ability is excellent, which is always key at linebacker. I can't remember who it was that said it, but I remember, I think a few years back, I think someone was talking about Quay Walker, and they were saying, like, speed at linebacker is fine, but like if you can't see what you're trying if you can't see what the offense is doing, you're just going to end up in the wrong direction, in the wrong place faster.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the thing. We get so obsessed by the sideline to sideline speed, but it's like, but if you can't read properly, you end up as Devin White,
Yeah.
incredibly fast, like not really doing what he needs to do.
Yeah,
Whereas
you'll
I
make
think
splash
Styles,
plays, but you'll have big plays the other way as well.
yeah. Your highlight reel looks excellent. Just don't ever watch the full games because it's
Yeah.
Whereas I think Styles is I think much more well-rounded. The weaknesses to his game are actually more coverage related than run game for me, which I wouldn't call them necessarily weaknesses. He's not like the biggest ball producer. I think he's a little bit grabby in man at times, but I don't think he's bad in coverage. I just don't think he's necessarily like a all-time playmaker that you maybe would think for him. But like I say, I think the rest of his game's so solid and he's very competent in coverage that he just feels like I would never say a guy's bust-proof, but he's the closest thing to bust-proof in this class.
Yeah, well, when you look at the film, there's also not loads and loads of reps where he's having to cover people that much because people didn't want to throw in the middle of the field against Downs and him on the same
Yeah.
team. Although Reese
Yeah.
was there at times. I know Matt Patricia kind of moved him more towards edge in the second half of the season, but there's still snaps where they're both in the middle of the field, and you're like, teams are just going to throw outside there. They're not going to throw inside. Yeah, I think I can't remember if it was Dane Brugler was saying, but he was saying that some teams were a bit worried about his coverage as well, and I was just like, I'm not sure you've seen enough bad reps.
No, it's more just like it's fine than anything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not seeing anything that makes me go, "Oh, well, I'm worried about playing him in coverage."
Yeah,
You know what I
he's
mean?
got good hands as well. I know I mentioned before about converting safety. So is he the biggest, strongest guy? I think he is strong. But his hands for me, I think when he's coming off blocks, I just think his ability to use his hands and get guys out of the way is incredible.
Yeah.
He reminds me a little bit in that regard. You should never compare anyone to this. Fred Warner's obviously not the biggest linebacker. Do you know what I mean? He's not as big as Nick Bolton, but he's arguably stronger just because of what he knows how to use his hands. And I think that's what he reminds me of. Not as good in coverage, obviously, but in terms of coming out in the middle against the run, I think that's what I see. And I think that's a nice comparison if you're a team that drafts him.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, if you can get a guy like that, the home run hit.
Yeah, agreed. What about, whilst we're on this topic, is Mendoza a safe pick? I think a lot of people deem him a safe pick. Do not watch Cal tape if you think he's a safe pick. There's a bit of a debate there. And then obviously his team did it's the highest RPO rate of any first-round quarterback in a long time, isn't it? So yeah, would you deem him safe or not?
Quarterback is such an odd one, isn't it? Because like evaluating quarterbacks are a bit of a minefield. I rate him highly. I have him in my tier 2, so I don't have any quarterbacks in tier 1 this year. So no blue chip quarterback. So he's in the kind of quality starter tier for me. I think he's fairly safe. There are a couple of things that give me pause for concern, which is I think he's not a great creator. I prefer a guy who wins from the pocket. I'd rather have a guy who can win because I think that's being able to create outside of structure is great, but it needs to be a section of your game, an additional part of your game, not the bread and butter. Because if you can't win from the pocket, it's not going to work. We always get excited by the highlights of Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, but those guys all win from the pocket really, really well. And those kind of highlight reel plays outside the pocket are something extra. With Mendoza, he doesn't offer that, but he is good from the pocket, so I'm less bothered. He is a little bit more of a kind of climb and escape the pocket quarterback, though. Like when there's pressure and he gets that space in front of him, he'll tuck it and run more than I would maybe like for a guy with his archetype. Obviously, not the most well-rounded athlete. I think arm strength and accuracy. Obviously, accuracy is brilliant. Arm strength, I think, is good. As soon as you get him out of the pocket and you ask him to throw off platform, they are both much worse. So he will be more offensive line dependent than I think the guys that we've talked about in previous number 1 overall conversations. Like a Drake May, I think, can overcome a bad offensive line. A Caleb Williams can overcome a bad offensive line better than a guy like Mendoza.
I think he started to get up and climb in the pocket and run and then slide or not slide because of the Cal experience of how bad the offensive line was. And if you watch that, he's just getting sacked non-stop. And So, sometimes he was holding the ball. Like everyone always blames, like with Joe Burrow, everyone always blames the offensive line. But sometimes you are holding the ball too long. And I think he got into that habit. But this year, that was just either trained out of him or he did it himself. Where he was like, right, if I'm about to take a sack, I'm going to try and, as long as it's not maybe field goal range, because he's very conservative in that, but he'll run up and get a couple of yards. So I think it's that Cal experience because he was sacked felt like every drop back I watched, he was sacked.
I will say it was a rough. Though I watched him last summer and was like, he was one of those. I didn't. I'll be honest. Like most people, didn't see this kind of rise from him, but
Yeah,
he was one of those where it was like, I don't know how much of this I can really evaluate because he is just being hung out to dry so often that like
yeah.
he's not got a chance. So I think at least he's got an experience of playing behind a bad offensive line because he's going to have to get used to that in the NFL, maybe especially at the Raiders.
Yeah, as I say, yeah, that might be the start of his journey. Cool. Let's move away from the top 10 then. Try and go first round. Who do you think would be the biggest steal of the first round from where you're seeing them mocked traditionally by, the big NFL media guys, but then a name where you're like, nah, I would take him at 8 if I was an NFL team, for example.
I think if I'm picking steals of the first round, there's a name that I would have. People seem to be all over the place on this guy. This is so injury dependent. Jamod McCoy from Tennessee.
So you're going to get the receiver with injury concerns, but you didn't.
No. I mean, there's quite a few guys in this class with injury concerns at the top. To be fair, for me, McCoy is. I mean, I think he's just a brilliant, brilliant player. I have him 4th on my board now,
but not a blue chip, I guess. Obviously,
no. So the board, the big board does account for positional value. So he is ahead of Downs and ahead of Love with
cool.
Positional value included. If you didn't have positional value and I was just going by my grade, he would be 5th. Yeah, he'd be 5th, and then Mendoza would be 6th. I think he's just a phenomenal player. Now the question is going to be injury. If you watch the 2024 tape, obviously there's no 2025 tape to watch because he didn't play. Like I heard from someone kind of connected to the Tennessee program that he was medically cleared and basically decided Tennessee's out of the running for the college football playoffs. They didn't want him to come back and risk anything, and he didn't want to come back and risk anything, which is why he sat out. There has been talk that he's been like flagged medically in the run up to the draft, so there is obviously something there. If he can be healthy and if he is the 2024 player that we saw on tape, I think he could be an absolute steal because he's not going in that kind of range in most drafts. You're talking more as a mid-first rounder, maybe even for some a later part of the first round. I think this could be a real discount that a team could get. You've just got to be willing to take that chance that you're getting an injured player and how that might then turn out.
Yeah, it's hard to tell really because he's started to get more hype since the pro day, isn't he? Running the 4.3 and how healthy he obviously looked. But you're starting to see him come up the board more now. But I think just pretend he never got injured. He's probably going like 3 or 4 or 5. Do you know what I mean? That's how good he is. But I keep seeing him at 12 or 11. That's sort of common now. Whereas a month ago I was seeing him at 25.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's going to be an exciting one. I wonder if he'll go before Delane in real life, but I think it just depends on if that story's true. Is the knee degenerative or is it just a one-off injury? That's me and you will never know that until he gets drafted. No. But
this is the thing with so much of these injuries. I mean, one of the other names I was thinking for this is Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle from Florida. Like multiple foot injuries. Foot injuries are always a concern, especially for bigger guys, just because of the weight they've got to bear. But like like I say, he's 20 on my board, but like
he's not going first round. I don't think
no, and I don't think he will. And I think that's one of those where it's like we could be sat here in 3 years. And it's like Caleb Banks just completely flamed out because of the injuries and he could never get on the field. And it's like that's where it's so difficult from the outside because there's these injuries, but you can weigh them a little bit, which is weighed into my grade for him. But it's like we're only going off what's public, and the NFL will have so much more. Which once the draft actually happens and we see where these guys drop, it's often then all revealed, and then it's like, oh right, okay, that just wasn't publicly available.
Yeah, it's like my team last year with Josh Simmons. I had him as the second best tackle. I think I'm the best tackle. I think I'm Will Campbell because I said Will Campbell would be a guard. So I loved his tape, but the injuries, and then it was coming out that his knee's relatively healthy for some, and then obviously the day before the draft, it came out that he was immature and stuff. It was like, okay, that's why he's dropping to 32. But on my board, he was like 13, I think, or 11 or something. I can't remember now. It feels like he's going to be one of those. Caleb Banks he'll either work, which I guess Josh Simmons did to some extent, but then he misses 6 weeks for a mystery reason, which Caleb Banks isn't just injury prone. He has got some character concerns if you listen to people as well. So.
Yeah. It's a real risk-reward pick.
Yeah, I think you've got to have a lot of picks for me. So if I'm like the Jets, I don't mind that with how many picks I've got. But if I've got like 4 picks or 5 picks like the Chargers or the Vikings, it's just not worth taking the risk. Just going quickly back to McCoy. Did you watch the McCoy v Ryan Williams tape?
Yes.
Oh, that's one of the best. That is incredible. He's literally locked him up the whole game.
It's just like the one of those ones where it's like a lot of college teams now will just play lots of like more passive zone and watching corners. It's like, okay, like it's fine, but it's not. Whereas that game, it's just like two guys going against each other, like proper man-to-man coverage over and over and over and over again. And it's like that says a lot about how Tennessee trusts McCoy.
Yeah.
But he's just so smooth, physical, almost a little too physical at times. But like that game was that was the one where I was like, right, okay, yeah, I see it. This is the guy. This is the guy.
There's a lot of corners in the first 2 rounds that are good, that are very physical, that might get flagged in the first few weeks when they're in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's definitely one of them. Cool. Going back to the top 10 then, or mid-round, I guess. Let's switch focus, talk about teams. We all love trades. I feel like every year I've watched the draft, a month before I hear there's going to be loads of trades. Some years it happens, some years you have 2 trades and everyone's a bit disappointed, I guess, because as a neutral, if it's not your team, you want to see a fun trade. What picks are you identifying this year, or teams that could be these massive trade up, trade down teams? Because I think it was Eric DeCosta and Brett Veach in 24 Hours that both said, with hardly any quarterbacks, hardly any defensive ends that are like Will Anderson, and hardly any tackles with long arms, they both said we think there'll be loads of trades this year. And it's quite rare for a GM to say. So yeah, where do you kind of fit in that, and what teams do you think could be active?
It's an interesting one, this, because I think this is the kind of draft where everybody wants to trade down, but you've got to have someone wanting to trade up, but also like someone wanting to trade up and make that deal good enough for you to then trade down, which I think is where the challenge is going to be with this one, because I think once you get past, I mean, you could argue in this draft that once you get past number 1 overall, every team for the next 5 picks, 6 picks should be looking to trade down, which I can't think of a draft in recent memory that I would have said you should be willing to move down. Not just willing, but you should be probably actually looking to move down from pick 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I think that's going to be where the problem is. I think it might be more trades. There's a couple of teams I can see looking at it in the top 10, which is, I think, primarily, the Cardinals, because they've got so many holes to fill. They are not looking to compete now. They want to accumulate picks. They've done it before where they've traded down. I think if there's a team that's aggressive and wants to come and get one of those guys, like if the Jets do go David Bailey, a team who wants to come and get Arvell Reese, or if they go Arvell Reese, a team who's like, right, we are high on Ruben Bain, or we're high on David Bailey. We want that guy. I can see a team like that, maybe like a Dallas coming up and trading with the Cardinals. Obviously, they got the 2 first-round picks, so they might be feeling like they've got the ammo. The Browns as well are another one I could see. Obviously, last year they traded out of 2nd overall. I could see them trying to do it again. 6, I think 6 is an odd one where they're often mocked to tackle or a receiver. I like Carnell Tate, so I wouldn't mind that pick. But like, I don't know if they're necessarily guys that you'd be going, I'd love to have them at 6. So if you can trade back a little bit and get more value, I think that's great. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of it in the last 10 to 15 picks of the draft, because I would say that's where it's going to become much more of a, yes, the group's closer because the talent is kind of, like I was saying, like 20 to 45, but there will be some teams that see it as like, well, I want my guy.
Yeah. And positions as well.
Yeah. We need this.
If you want a guard, do you know what I mean? You got not many to choose from. If you want a outside wide receiver, you've probably not got loads to choose from because there's so many slot guys. I think it depends on that position, doesn't it? Defensive tackle's the same. Not many of those. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I do wonder if we could see 2 or 3 teams that are like late top 10, early 11, 12, end up picking mid. Do you know what I mean? I do wonder if we could see a Titans small trade back and the Browns trade back, and it's that top order goes. But I think for me, it's just because it'll be slightly cheaper. I imagine they'll be a bit more willing to take less picks. So you're not going to need a future first to trade from 12 to 6. You'll just be able to give up your pick this year if you're the Cowboys, and then probably get a 4th back or something. I think it's not going to be, well, we'll see, but it's not going to be, I don't think, a Travis Hunter or a Falcons Rams trade this year for me anyway.
No, because none of these guys that you're taking are, and it's one of those things where it's like, I think most teams are smart enough to know that even if you have a player graded really highly, like if you're looking at this and you go, okay, we have a really high grade on, I don't know, Ruben Bain, let's say, but if you know that like the general view of that is like he's good, but he's not in that elite tier, but you're not just going to overpay just because you have a really high grade on him.
Yeah, take a risk or see if he comes to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you'd like to think teams are smart enough to acknowledge that.
Yeah, we'll see. Jerry's in the draft, so
Yeah,
maybe
Jerry's.
not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
you can never guarantee anything with Jerry.
I'm hoping for chaos, but also there's quite a few teams with multiple first round picks and loads with. There's 4 teams I think with 3+ top 40 picks, so
Yeah,
that could lead to one way or the other. But yeah, I'm sure people listening to this pod are fed up of hearing it on pods. But next year's quarterback class is really good as well. So in theory, so you don't want to necessarily trade next year's pick. So I think it'll be more trading up, trading back, rather than trading loads of capital to come up. But yeah, we'll see. I wouldn't mind if my team traded up, but as long as it wasn't for Franz Marino or something like that, then I wouldn't be doing a draft reaction show. Cool. Well, let's get you being negative then on some players. Who are your most overhyped prospects? You can go wherever you want. You can probably go for a couple because I know we've got one position group. You've got a couple of names on.
yeah. I've got 3 names. I don't know which one we want to go with. So I've got the first name I've got written down is Keldrick Folk, the edge from.
That's 2 players I like that are going to be in your list.
Okay, so he's 56 on my board.
Oh wow.
I then have, and I don't really dislike this player. I just think we're maybe overhyping where he is because we want somebody in this group to be one, which is Kenyon Sadiq, the Oregon tight end. I like him. He's my tight end 1. I just think some people talking him up as a top. I mean, I think it's kind of cooled off a bit, but like I think he's around 15 on the consensus board, or he's certainly in that range. I have him at
17.
14.
Yeah, 17
Yeah.
on the one I look at. And what do you have him?
44.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I like him, but I don't see like there's again positional values baked into that. I see a good starter, but I don't see like a game changing guy. And then the other one is another tight end, which is Eli Stowers from.
That one's my guy, and you hate Eli Stowers.
He's 122 on my board.
I know, that's mad. He's 52 on consensus.
Yeah,
42 on mine. I've got him higher on mine than you've got Sadiq higher on yours.
he's grown on me a little bit. I have he is now ever so slightly ahead of. I mean, this is the thing though. This is like one of the things where you're comparing like chalk and cheese. I have him slightly ahead of Ohio State's tight end Will Kesmerick, who is like a 6'6", 260-pound pure blocking tight end who had about 30 career catches. But like comparing the two of them is kind of difficult given they do completely different things, but they do both say tight end next to their name. So, but those are the 3 guys that I've listed as probably the ones I'm lower on the consensus.
You picked 3 good ones there because there are 3 players that I like. Although I can't get there with Sadiq as much as others. Because I am hearing Sadiq at 9 for my Kansas City Chiefs is not out of the question, which I think would be a mistake. But I still like him more than you. But he's probably one I'm more neutral on. I've got him 23, and on the consensus he's 17, so I'm slightly lower than him on consensus. But the other 2 I'm much higher on than you. So yeah, let's go through Folk then. Well, Folk and Sadiq are similar. Is it the fact they don't have any production? Is the reason they're lower on your board?
I think so. For me, with Folk, it's like the idea of Folk coming into the year is like everyone's getting really excited because like this guy's huge, he's young, he's
21.
like like he could be anything, and like he was on the freaks list, and I always think like sometimes it's like a guy being on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. I think we then have the tendency to maybe overstate some of the athleticism sometimes. I didn't. So my issues with Folk. Well, actually, I'll start by being nice. So I think the size is great. I think his hands are heavy. I think he's got flashes a good bull rush. I think length is obviously great. Anchor strength is good. You see, I mean, he's a very reliable run defender. Alignment versatile as well. Like Auburn will often kick him inside, playing like as a 4-eye kind of between the guard and the tackle. Very comfortable doing that. So if you're a team that wants to move you guys up and down the line, I think he's a good option for that. The issue I have with him is, so I don't see that this freak athlete on tape. I think he's stiff in the lower half. So I don't see bend. I don't see a guy who I trust to attack tackles around the arc and win around their outside shoulder and bend and win there. So then it's like, okay, that's not necessarily the end of the world, but you then got to be really consistent at winning through the chest and kind of on inside moves. And he plays every inch of that 6'6" frame. And he gets really tall and upright out of his stance, which always hinders your ability to then convert speed to power. And I don't think his pass rush plan is very varied or effective if that bull rush doesn't move. I think he's a high floor guy in the sense that like I think he's just a really good run defender. I just don't think I see that pass rush. Like he's like a bit like a Michael Williams type for me, but I thought Williams was better as a pass rusher.
Yeah, I think he had some worse games. Would be my concern on my write-up. I've got his 4 worst games and his 4 best games for me were so different. That's my worry. Like if I was taking him at 12, for example, if I was the Cowboys and wanted an edge rusher, I'd be very worried because I think it was Arkansas. I gave him the worst grade of the season, which is not even a starting grade on mine. So, like, he's had some really poor games, but then I think it was the Oklahoma game, really good. His bull rush was just constantly winning. But I am with you. I don't think he's not going to be a bendy edge.
No.
But is that because he's too heavy? I'm not sure. He's a big, huge guy. Obviously, RAS score through the roof. But yeah, I think there's more, maybe a lower floor but higher ceiling for me. I think he's good if you play the right scheme. I think of the scheme that my team plays, I think he's good. I think he'd be good in a Brandon Staley type defense where you're asked to stop the run on first down in 4-man fronts. But I don't know if I'd want him in an Eagles type defense, for example. Yeah, that'd be my concern. But I like him more than you, but I do agree that his bend just isn't there. But I don't know if he's just too big because he's massive.
He is, and he's in that kind of. I wouldn't say he's like a tweener because I don't see him as like a full-time defensive tackle, but he does have that kind of tweenerish build where it's like 276 pounds. It's like that's like what are we doing there? Like I'd rather you be playing it like if you're 260, that's really decent size, and that 15 fewer pounds, I think he could still be a very functional run defender and then get a little bit more juice as a pass rusher. I wouldn't be surprised if he drops some of that weight in the league. Yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah, his snap alignments are hilarious when you look at it. He's had so many as like an outside linebacker where he has to drop into coverage, but then he's had like 150 and 500 where he's basically lined up, like you said, 4 in the middle to try and stop the run or rush the passer on the interior if it's 3rd and 12. And then he's played both ends as well, equally, left and right end. So he's kind of just been all over the line. So
I hate watching guys like that because every single rep you're watching, you have to find them. Like it's like it's the complete opposite of like Tennessee wide receivers who I generally don't like, but they're easy to watch because they are always on the same side of the field and they're always exactly the same place. It's like, okay, this is easy, I can get through the film really quick. Whereas Folk, it's like, right, hang on, pause the tape. Where is it? Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and they're miles off the line of scrimmage as well, so they can stand out more. Let's not spend too long on Stowers. Anyone listens to this pod before, and as you know, as a guest, I love freak athletes, and I value athleticism more than some. I know you're a tape before that kind of person. Is it just the blocking, or do you not actually think even at receiving he's that good of a tight end, or is it just the blocking? Because anyone who listens to this who didn't listen to last year, Jack's a Packers fan and a bit of a Tucker Craft fanboy, so he's going to like a blocking tight end.
I've been Packer pilled over the years. Blocking is a big thing for me with a tight end because I'm like, if you can't block and you can't play in line, then it does limit what role you're going to play at the NFL level. Now, Harold Fannin, for example, that was a concern I had with him last year. I didn't think he could block in line. He obviously was productive as a rookie, but where Fannin was better than Stowers for me was he was at least good as a space blocker, kind of at the second level, engaging there. I just didn't see it from Stowers as a blocker. Now, that's kind of to be expected because he is still very new to the position. He was playing quarterback until a few years ago. So in that sense, like there's hope that there's maybe development still to be had. I do think he's a really, obviously, really explosive athlete. I think his hands are good. I think he's also quite good as a route runner in terms of the nuance. He doesn't just rely on winning with pure speed. You do see him work guys and use kind of subtle manipulation, whether it's kind of varying the stem, attacking leverage, blind spots, all that sort of stuff. But I don't think he's going to be a consistent like man-to-man separator in the NFL if you just ask him to win kind of as a pure receiver, because teams can go, right, we're just going to stick a athletic safety on him, or we will just go like the whole thing with tight end is you want the defense to be in conflict where they're going, right, okay, well, we can't stick a super athletic DB on him because then they can just run the ball at us and we're outmanned.
Yeah.
I don't think Stowers presents that same problem. I think if you want him as your like tight end 2 who plays kind of more as that H-back or the F or whatever you want to kind of play him as, I think he could be more useful there.
That's exactly what I want him for. I want him to be my new Noah Gray. That's what I want him to be. But yeah, you've been pilled by that, and I've been pilled by watching a tight end line up wide and just beat corners for 10 years. So that's the difference. But no, I think he's just a freak. And I think there's loads of good blockers in this class actually for tight ends, but I actually don't think there's many good receivers at tight end. So I'm a bit like, if you don't get it, I'm not sure what you're going to get. I know you like this guy as well, and I might be spoiling the later answer, but Roush, I love Roush as well.
Yeah.
Apart from him, I'm not sure who else you're going to get that can catch and block. I'm kind of going.
There's not many. It is one or the other, or they are kind of like adequate at both and brilliant at neither.
Yeah, and there's a bit of projection, which is tight end in general, isn't it? But
yeah,
cool. I'm glad you picked 3 guys I like. That made it more fun. Let's move to a position we not spoke about loads, apart from the arm length. So offensive tackle. In kind of mock drafts, we're getting Fanu early, we're getting Mawanoa early, we're getting Monroe Freeling now at 6. If you listen to some of the press conferences last couple of days, people keep saying maybe they'll go slightly later, but there's going to be loads in the first round. I guess which tackles are you most nervous about? Like, are we in the Will Campbell Super Bowl territory for any of these guys, or even worse, where you just think they're not even going to take snaps at tackle in the NFL?
To a degree, I'm worried about most of them because, like I'm not. So Mawanoa is my top ranked tackle. There is a part of me that's not sure he's a tackle. I think he is, but I wouldn't necessarily bet a good sum of money on him staying there in the NFL.
And he's a right tackle, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then Fano, who's also right tackle, the really short arms. There is a degree of that where I think that's just the weird way the combine's measuring at the moment, but he does have short arms, even if you account for that. And he is like not an ideal tackle build. He's really like thin frame. So you wonder whether he's going to move inside. He took snaps at center at the combine, which I think is interesting.
Because teams asked him to as well, so that tells you what some teams
exactly.
think.
At least some teams are seeing him moving inside, which I think he could be good there. But I'm not drafting a center in the top 10. So, and then like Freeling, I do not understand him at 6 like that. I feel like that's the one that we do this every year where there's a guy who gets buzz and then it's like suddenly like, hang on a minute, I thought I liked him and now like I feel like I don't like him because I just can't see it.
You're low on him now, even though you've been high on him for 2 months.
Yeah. So I think he's like 19 on my board, which I was like, that felt like kind of fairly high when I was grading him. And I remember having a conversation with someone when I graded him, and I had him in the first round, and I was on a pod, and they were like, "Oh, Freeling in the first round? That's bold. I've not seen that." And then now it's like at 6. I'm like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah, he was 34 on the consensus board 6 weeks ago. He's 13 now.
Yeah, so that's just too rich for me. The one that worries me the most is probably the one that will worry most people the most, which is Caden Proctor from Alabama. I think there are moments on his tape where it's just like incredible. Like the size and the strength are just overwhelming. He has an unreal anchor and the ability to he's so explosive out of his stance for a guy that is that big, but he can't then change direction, which is the problem. Like he has the burst to match speed, but if they then cross his face and he has to mirror, like it gets ugly, and he's tall and big, so I'm like, I don't really want to move him into guard. So then it gets
huge
quite.
Well, people listening who don't know how big he is, but he is huge. He's like 360 pounds.
Yeah, he's huge. And there's questions there around like whether he's like able to manage his weight properly. Like, and he's 6'7". The comp for him for me is like a Mekhi Becton, which again, obviously Becton ended up playing kind of inside. So he's an odd one where like the strength is undeniable, the power is unreal, but like he doesn't really have the feet of a tackle, but then he doesn't have the knee bend and flexibility of a guard. So then it's like, what do I do with that?
Yeah, I'm worried about my team trading up for him because Andy Reid loves long arm tackles, and he has got long arms. So
the new Orlando Brown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think the Lions keep getting mocked him as well, which does make sense in terms of like personality. But
yeah, he'd be
yeah. But again, I'm not sure he can protect the edge and go up the arc against defensive ends. But yeah, the next 2 questions are around day 2 and day 3, and I saw your Twitter, so I know there's a tackle that you're super high on that's not going to go on those days. So why don't you tell us about Blake Miller and why you like him so much?
Blake Miller, I love Blake Miller. Clemson offensive tackle. He is. So I don't know. I don't know what I am. What I'm missing with Miller, right? So he's 6'7", 317. So size profile tick. He is a 4-year starter. He has the record for the most snaps played at Clemson by any non-special teamer. Experience, tick. He is crazy athletic, tested really well, moves really well, so ticks the athleticism box. Was playing at Clemson, so he's got 4 years of Power 4 experience, tick. he is, by all accounts, when you hear people like Brugler talking about him, like the character is
Yeah,
all there.
everyone says that, don't
they? Heard something that basically said he has missed in his entire time at Clemson. So he never missed a game in 4 years. He missed one practice, and the only reason he missed the one practice was he broke his wrist. And he only missed one practice, and he didn't miss any game time, which is just hilarious. So the character's off the charts, and the tape's good. He's really, really comfortable in pass protection. He finishes well in the run game. He's got a really strong outside hand as pass protector to kind of nullify those kind of wide rushes. He's really light and smooth on his feet. The fundamentals, the technique's all good. I think he moves well in the run game, finishes well. Now, there's a bit of pad level issues there. Like 6'7", you're going to expect a bit of pad level issues. I think he can be a little bit passive with his hands at times, where he's just comfortable to let guys into his chest, which was fine in college, but you're going to get killed doing that in the NFL. But that's like a pretty fixable thing in terms of just your punch timing. So for me, like he's one of my absolute favorite players in the class. He's my OT2. He's not far off being my top tackle. I have him number 12 on my big board. So that is like
late 20s, isn't he, on the consensus?
Yeah.
I think.
He's my flag punt of this class. And also the thing is with him, like we were saying, like a lot of these guys, you're thinking, are they guards? He is a tackle now. He plays right tackle. But he's a tackle. So there is no doubt with that guy, if you're getting him, he's going to play tackle. And that's valuable.
Yeah, he's one of my favourites for my team later in the first round because he can play right tackle. Got good arm length as well, good RAS score. I just don't know why he didn't play left tackle. So why? That's my thing. I'm like, did they not think he could play right tackle? Because I wouldn't say he's the best athlete. I think he had quite a bad 3-cone, if I remember. I haven't got the 3-cone on it. I've just got the overall score. I think he had quite a bad 3-cone, and that wouldn't surprise me because I'm not sure his movement skills are great for a tackle, personally.
Why? I don't know why he played right tackle, because I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I might be missing someone really obvious. I cannot think of a Clemson offensive tackle.
Well, he played 4 years right tackle as well, so it almost doesn't matter.
I can't think of any like left tackle coming out of Clemson as a draft prospect that I've been aware of. I might be missing a horrendously obvious one, but I can't think of it.
Yeah, that's the difficult one for me, is just why didn't he play left tackle? But I do like him. I think he's definitely going to go in the first round. Definitely.
Yeah,
I think I still prefer Max Yonoshaw more than him slightly. But I say Blake Miller's floor is way higher. So he is a high floor player.
Yes.
I thought I'd give you a chance to mention you guy because I saw on Twitter how high you were. Right, last two questions then. So we're going to go through some day 2 and day 3 values. So just guys you like on day 2, maybe you've got a higher grade that you'll see them mocked, and then we'll do the same for grade 3. So for day 3. So let's see, what names have you got? This is the fun part. We can just rattle out your favorite picks, and we can see where they get drafted.
Yeah. So these are guys. So I've gone based off like where they are on the consensus board. So I have them higher, obviously. So first guy who I've got for day 2 is Indiana cornerback D'Angelo Pons. He's never going to win any size contest. He's 5'9" and 182 pounds. But I think he is a phenomenal player. He is so fluid. He is really light on his feet. Really, really great eyes to kind of read when he's playing off coverage. Feisty at the catch point and physical in run defense. I don't care that he's tiny. He is probably the best run defending corner and tackler in this class. I think he's wonderful. I've always liked those smaller corners. Like I know he's definitely really small. But I like Jacob Parrish last year. Loved Trent McDuffie when he was coming out. I just think he's one of those guys where it's like, okay, he's smaller, but he's physical. I think he can play. I prefer him as a nickel. I think he can play outside. I think the way the league's going, there's enough guys that play outside that are his size now. But I love him. He is, where is he on my board? He's definitely top 32, I think. Yeah, he's 29 on my board.
Yeah, his size concerns aren't just height, though, are they? Their weight, arm length, hand size. It's like
he's just tiny all around. Yeah. He's short, he's skinny, he's got short arms.
But his best film is outside, which actually worries me because if I'd seen him in the slot and he'd been amazing in college in the slot, I'd be a bit more confident. But I actually think his best tape is outside. So I think.
So he's only played 28 snaps as a nickel.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's going to have to play outside, I think.
Yeah. So I just think he's like one of those guys where if I was just ranking guys by how much fun I had watching their film, he'd be top 5. The other guy who would also be top 5 in the most fun film is Michigan edge rusher Jay-Sean Barham. So I love him. He is my edge 4.
Wow. You do love him.
He's like, so I watched him in the summer when he was playing line. So he played linebacker at Michigan. I watched him in the summer, and I was like, I don't get it. I didn't see it at linebacker. I was like, very linear, he's fast, but I was like, I don't really see the player that I want at linebacker. And then he moved to edge this year. He is like, to me, the reason I love. There's a few reasons I love him. Really explosive, really explosive. I think he shows the ability to win in 3 different ways as a pass rusher, which for me is what you want, which is the ability to win around the outside, win through the chest, and win in like as an inside counter. He is unbelievably violent as a player. He will take on pullers with like ridiculous amounts of aggression, throwing his body in the line. If you want to watch like one game, if you want to watch one game to convince yourself on Barham, watch the Nebraska game, because he was just like throwing himself around, busting up plays like left, right, and center. And there was a number of them where like he will not record a stat in the stat sheet. Like he didn't make the tackle, but his ability to take on the blockers blew up the play and allowed his teammates to make the play. I think he is the perfect edge for where the NFL is going. All these teams that want to run loads of stunts, they want to run loads of sim pressures, they want to get guys up at the line and they'll be able to drop them. He's played linebacker, so he can be that. He can be a legit threat. You line him up on the edge and then drop him into coverage. He's fine. Like I say, not world-beating linebacker, but he is the kind of guy who can do a bit of that. So for me, there's definitely room to refine his technique as an edge. I mean, he's played there for one season, right? So of course he's still developing, but he's the guy I'd be betting on kind of late part of the first round.
Yeah, that's one we agree on. Yeah, he's 86 on the consensus board, I think, that I've got. I think he's 59 on mine. Really good hands. Yeah, I think he's good against the run as well, probably from the linebacker route. Whereas, yeah, I think he's really good against the run, which again, pains me to say as a man who likes to pass the football, but the NFL teams like to run and run outside zone a lot now. And I think they're the sort of edge players that you need. Also, you want him to be able to rush the passer, of course, but I think he can do both. So, yeah, I'm with you. I really liked. I wasn't even watching him. I can't remember who I was watching now. It might be Mason Graham before, but I was watching someone else and then spotted him. And then this year, his tape was really good. Chris, who's a Chiefs fan I'm in a group with, had mentioned him for me to watch him. And then, yeah, I loved it. So, yeah, he's a good player. What about day 3 then? Let's go real niche.
Yeah. So, one of the guys I love on day 3, who I would probably take on day, well, I would take on day 2. He's definitely day 2 on my board. Is Caleb Proctor from southeastern Louisiana.
Yeah, he's rising now, thankfully.
He is. So this guy is amazing. So he played linebacker in high school. One of those rare linebacker to defensive tackle converts. There's actually 2 of those in this class. Actually, there's a guy from Tennessee who also did that. But so 0-star recruit, played at Southeastern Louisiana, not a guy that you're going to be, not a team you're going to be watching very regularly, but you switch on the game where he played LSU, and he absolutely dominated that line. Now, LSU's offensive line this year was not brilliant, but he was like unreal, unblockable. So he is like, if you've not watched him, he is your classic kind of 3-tech, explosive upfield rusher. He is unbelievably quick off the line. His rush moves as a pass rusher, I think, are really impressive. You see kind of a club swim, there's a rip, 2-hand swipe. He's not a guy who just goes, right, I've got one way to win. He'll win in different ways. Really good on stunts, flexible in the lower half. And he's shorter, so he's 6'2", so has the natural leverage to get up and under blocks. Obviously, the frame is smaller. He's 291 pounds, so he is on the smaller side. He's not a guy you're going to ask to sit and hold up against double teams. But if you want pass rushing juice on your interior, which I think is one of those things that teams are increasingly realizing is very valuable and quite hard to come by. If you can get him on day 3, like, I'd be sprinting the card in. I think, though, he might end up, he's, I think, 115, I think, on the consensus board, somewhere around there. I think he'll end up going, like, third round.
Yeah.
I think he'll go 3rd round. Yeah.
There's not many people that can get up the field pass rush wise in this class as well. There's not many defensive tackles that have got that quick first step. Yeah. It's not a class for that. It's a class for kind of nose tackle, plug the gaps, take on a whole gap and a half type players. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm really high on him as well. He reminded me a little bit of Norman Lott as well, who my team took, but I was super high on him last year. He's like that, but I think he's bigger. I think I can't remember his exact size profile, but he's bigger. Yeah, I'm with you. It's a bit annoying. He's got a very similar name to another Proctor.
Another K Proctor. Yeah.
I think Trevor Sickham as well, pretty high on him as well from when I was listening to their pod. Who's next, or is it last but not least for this one? Is it?
I have one more. We will stick on the on the defensive tackles because this is another guy I like who I have very kind of similar grade on. Who's also very similar size but actually shorter. Landon Robinson, the defensive tackle from Navy. He is. I mean, it's not every year that you're finding Navy tape to watch a draft prospect. But he was brilliant. He was one of those guys that I was really disappointed to see getting snubbed from the combine. He's 5'11", which is one of those rare sub 6 foot defensive tackles. 192 pounds. Navy played him primarily as a nose tackle. That's not what he's going to be doing in the NFL, obviously, at that size. Goes without saying it. 5'11", he wins the leverage battle every time. And he might be 292 pounds, but the whole adage of like the low man wins, if you want proof of that, go watch his tape because he cannot be moved off the spot. Like thinking about him in the NFL, he is a really, really high end athlete. His numbers at Navy's Pro Day were really impressive. Really explosive first step. You do see him kind of working again like Proctor really well on stunts. Lower half flexibility is all there. Now he's like I say short arms, undersized. Very much a guy who's reliant on winning quickly. He's not gonna, if these guys can get into his frame, he's gonna stall out a bit more. But I don't know where he's going to end up going. I mean, he'll be certainly day 3 on the consensus board. But for me, I'd have him kind of, what if I got 4th round grade on him? So yeah, definitely a guy I'd be happy to get kind of early day 3.
I think he's about 6 as well on the consensus, 6th round-ish. I haven't got his, but I think he was about 6 rounds. Yeah, I like it. Got very heavy on defense there. Yeah. Why don't we throw one... throw a couple of offensive ones back at you, and then we'll get you out of here because we've taken too much of your time. But
sure. So offensive ones. Let's have a look.
I've got one from Navy for you. I want to know what you think about Eli Hendenrick or Hendenreich, whatever you say. The man who's the closest thing to Christian McCaffrey we've seen, according to Mike Renner.
He's an interesting one because he's like, I think he's probably going to play slot receiver in the NFL, but he's a really weird one to evaluate because Navy's offense is like so odd. I mean, I love it, but it's not in any way translatable to the NFL. Like what he's lining up at and and when he is running the ball, he's not running ever between like. If you look at his, I was looking at this the other day and it's crazy. When you look on PFF, they have the splits in terms of where you run kind of targets, and obviously most running backs, he's listed as a fullback, which is hilarious because he's 200 and whatever pounds, but almost all of his runs have come outside the tackles. He has 3 runs between the tackles this year out of 77. I think he's going to be one of those guys that goes day 3. I think a special teamer, offensive weapon type thing. So he's like a core 4 special teamer. So he's got all 4 experience on all 4 kind of key special teams units, which is valuable for day 3. I think a nice rotational slot receiver, or maybe a bit more of a kind of gadget guy if you've got an offense who wants to get a guy who can be the move guy, motion guy. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that will be really dependent to see where he lands, because I think I want to see a team that gets creative with how they use him.
Yeah, I think he's 256 on the consensus, but he's in like 180s for me just because of the athleticism and the scope that he could be anything. I think is really good. And he got 1,000 receiving yards, I think, at Navy, which is unheard of for someone to get 1,000 receiving yards.
Yeah, so. And if he's like, if you look at the advanced numbers as well, like it breaks all of the models. He had, what is it?
His yards per outrun is nuts, isn't it?
4.73 yards per outrun. Because obviously Navy don't pass it an awful lot, but when they do, it's just like bombs away. So it's like hilarious. Like I've got my database, which has every college season since 2014, I think, in like one Excel sheet, and like he just breaks it all because every time you search by like the top thing, it's just like he's always just at the top. It's like
he's a fun player. Hopefully, he goes to a team with a fun offensive coordinator. Could be a good one for Ben Johnson for a Bears. Yeah, and then I mentioned Sam Roush earlier from Stanford. I love him. I think he's a great in the receiving game. I think he's a great blocker. Probably tested better than people thought. And then Eli Riverdon from Notre Dame. I think he's a tight end that should be going way higher than where he's going. I think he's underrated in a year where teams are going to play 2 tight ends all the time and you need people that can block. I think he's a really good player as well. So they'd be 2 fun ones that I mentioned.
Yeah, I think he's brilliant. I have like my tight ends are the gap between Titan 2 and Titan 6 is, it's like absolutely nothing. Redham would have been my Titan 2 on like film grade alone. The only reason he dropped, so he's Titan 6 for me. The only reason he's dropped is the 2 torn ACLs.
Yeah.
But literally, there was like the tiniest amount of like, it won't mean anything, but like it's a 5.87 for my Titan 2 and a 5.81 for Titan 6. So it's literally like 0.06 of a
nothing.
grading scale, which is it's nothing on my system. So it's almost like if you can't get Titan 1, who I am admittedly lower on, it's like Titan 2 to Titan 6 is like they're all good.
Yeah.
They're all very similar.
Yeah, they are very similar. Yeah, Roush, him, Delp, Blair, similar players. Give us one offensive guy then for day 3, and then we'll end it here.
I think if we go day 3, I don't know if he's still on day 3 now on consensus. I'm just going to check. I will go with one of my guys. Yeah, he is. He's just on day 3. John Stribling from Ole Miss. I've seen rumors that he's who's a wide receiver. For those who haven't seen him, I think he'll go higher. I think he'll be day 2. He's just one of those where I'm like, okay, it's kind of the offensive version of Blake Miller to a degree, where I go, okay, he's 6'2", 207, pick size, ran a 4.3 at the combine, good athlete, pick, played in the SEC and was productive and had his best performances in the college football playoffs, tick. So it's like, okay, you're telling me you've got a guy who's got build of an X receiver, he can win against press, and that's super important. He is really good against press. Has the speed to win and stack downfield, and good hands. It's like, okay, like that's the profile I'm going to bet on. I'm not saying he's going to be like a world beater or going to be the best receiver in the NFL, but like that's a really safe profile. There's not a lot, even if he doesn't develop at all beyond what he is at the moment, which I think is a little bit of a limited route runner, and I think he's not much of a creator after the catch. But even if he doesn't develop those things, it's like, okay, I've still got a very serviceable receiver who can be I think like kind of wide receiver 3 would be a great situation having as your wide receiver 3 on a team.
Yeah, on my notes, it's 4-year starter, 93 receiving yards per playoff game that he played in. So when the big moments were there, he was even better. Great against press. What was it? It was hitches and go routes were like 60% of his route tree, but he looks like he's got quickness to get in and out of breaks to run better routes than that. That's what my sort of bullet point I do for pods on each player, and he was really good. And I've just searched him to see if he had an RAS score, and the first thing that came up, which is a good place to end it, is the Packers Wire website saying unpacking future Packers wide receiver John Stribling.
Yes, please.
You're not the only Packers fan who likes him.
That would make me very happy. I have a horrible feeling they'll do something crazy and pick like deny Dennis Sutton at 52 or someone like that. Like I am always tearing my hair out of Packers picks. So, but we live in hope. We live in hope.
Yeah, last year you liked some more of them when we spoke.
I do. Yeah, maybe they're getting better, or I'm just being slowly worn down over time.
Maybe you're becoming more on their side of things, but we'll see. Cool. Well, we'll end it there then. Great episode. So thanks, Jack, for coming on. Do you want to shout out again for anyone who's just listening, shout out your Twitter profile in case people want to go get the draft guide?
Yep. Yeah, sure. So it's Jack_Brentnall, which is BRENTNALL. Find my pin post. Draft guide is there.
Nice. Yeah, do it, guys. Yeah, as you can tell from this pod, Jack's very knowledgeable, so you can get good info from there. What's your plan for draft night? Are you a watcher, or with work, do you watch it the next day? I don't think I asked you that last year.
I have the time off work, so I am going to be up until all hours. Yeah, well, I'll try. Yeah. When it gets to like day 2, like the cumulative tiredness is always tricky to fight through, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, day 1 and day 3 are definitely easier.
Day 3, just kind of chilling on the sofa.
Day 3, you're missing picks all the time though, because they've got puppies on the stage and all sorts. Well, I'll try to text you if you end up drafting Proctor or something. I'll trade up for Proctor in the first round from pick 50 or whatever. We'll see. But that is it for our kind of main pre-draft episode. So me and Patrick will be back to do a first round mock draft, what we think the teams are going to do in our next episode, and then we're back to do some draft grades. I'm sure we'll probably get Lee back on as well, especially if the Chargers make a bad pick, so we can hear his views on how frustrated that was. But you can go follow us at Go42Pod on Twitter as well, and then you can follow Patrick as well at MugsNFL to get all your NFL-related gear after your team drafts, whoever they draft on draft night. So thanks for listening, everyone, and we will speak to you soon.